What a super close fight. Alex Pereira defeats Jan Blachowicz by a split decision at high altitude in Salt Lake City, Utah, which impacted the fight a bit because both fighters started to tire. Jan Blachowicz specifically was exhausting himself, hanging onto the back of Pereira, trying to take the fight to the ground constantly and taking body shots throughout and leg kicks as well. His body was getting systematically broken down by Pereira throughout the fight, intelligently as well. Those body jabs are not just to create distance and stuff, he was thrusting them right in there and it was causing Jan to gas. But the decision was a bit controversial. A lot of people believe that Jan Blachowicz should have won the fight, stemming off of the third round. That's what ultimately this all falls onto. The third round. Who won? Because the first definitely went to Jan Blachowicz, who had Pereira's back for pretty much like 4 minutes. Some are trying to argue 10-8, but it's kind of tough to say 10-8. It's like borderline there because the choke was never really in. He was constantly going for chokes on Pereira, but they were never really that close. Only like one of them got somewhat close, but most of them were across the face. And then they got defended immediately. Credit to Pereira for advancing his skill set on the ground. And then in the second round, it definitely went to Pereira, who was destroying Jan's leg with kicks, landing a lot of body jabs, and even stunned him a little bit at the end of the second round with those right hooks. It's all on the third round, and this is exactly how the judges saw it. You could see that all the judges pretty much have it the way most fans did. The third round was the one that was in question. Derek Cleary and Ron McCarthy both gave the third round to Alex Pereira, whereas Junichiro Kamijo gave it to Jan Blachowicz. And the score fights, you have to go by the scoring criteria, which pretty much states that damage trumps everything. And if you get the fight to the ground with effective grappling, you have to do something with it that contributes to the end of the fight. You cannot just take the opponent to the ground and hold them there. That is more toward control than actual effectiveness. Now, if Jan Blachowicz took the fight down and then transitioned into a good position, got the back, trying to go for chokes and stuff like that, that is the definition of effective grappling. Not necessarily securing a takedown and then sitting in full guard, because the full guard position is like a neutral position. The guy on top is not in an advantageous position. Only the takedown itself gets scored a little bit, but if you don't do anything with it, it's not a whole lot. Damage is the main contributing factor of that third round. And in order to get the most accurate description possible, we're going to categorize every single strike in accordance to damage, light, medium, and heavy, and then we'll talk about the grappling after categorizing the strikes. And to preface, the light strikes are not really going to matter too much if there are medium and heavy strikes landed. It's the most damaging that are only really going to count here. Because if you go to light strikes and stuff, it's more about the cumulative damage, but the immediate damage, according to the scoring criteria, is much more important. It weighs heavier. So single big shots are the biggest contributing factor to winning a round. And that's going to be the most important thing for the round, not so much all the cumulative shots. We start the round and the first strike that lands is Pereira's leg kick that actually gets partially checked by Jan Blachowicz, but the impact still goes all the way through. You can see a bit more damage on Blachowicz. And then a return leg kick from Jan Blachowicz lands with not that much power. Body jab for Alex Pereira, digging it into more the chest area, but also does get slightly parried by Jan after the punch lands. And here's a bigger strike from Jan Blachowicz, who reaches in around for a left hook as Pereira thought it was going to be a jab. So he actually catches Pereira pretty clean, not the most damaging shot, but definitely a medium, and then follows it up with a light jab afterward to push Pereira away. This body jab from Pereira seems to have missed as Jan moves away with his body. The camera angle being behind Pereira's back does make it hard to see if it touches at all, but it does look like it slides past it. Low leg kick from Pereira seems to have missed as well. It might have touched the foot, but do we count those? We'll put it in there, but it's not going to matter too much. Now, this head kick from Pereira actually slightly lands with the toes inside the guard. You can see where his toes penetrate the guard, and the reaction from Jan also does show that the kick lands, but it's a light strike. Body jab from Pereira, and then we get a big calf kick from Alex Pereira. This is the biggest shot of the round so far. The impact kicks Jan's leg onto the inside, definitely a damaging shot. Body jab from Jan Blachowicz just pushes away Pereira, and he was using it to condition Pereira for the next punch, which is going to be a left hook around the side, as Pereira lands another calf kick at the same time. The shots from Jan Blachowicz didn't really get much impact in there because his balance got taken away from him from the calf kick. The punch would have been much bigger if he didn't get kicked to the leg at the same time. But this, I would say, probably in between a medium and light strike. And just like usual, he does follow this up with a jab, pushing Pereira away to put him at the distance to extend his combination, ending with a body kick. that really doesn't show much effect on Pereira. He doesn't follow through with the kick, he kind of hits him and then pulls the kick out. Another calf kick from Pereira, these are adding up. These kind of calf kicks are attributing to cumulative damage, unless like some big one actually lands and stumbles Blachowicz. That'd be categorized as immediate impact, and then Pereira follows up with a jab that slightly snaps Jan Blachowicz's head back. The jab connects at the very end of the punch. Body jab for Pereira grazes, does not connect clean at all. Another leg kick from Pereira, but the camera angle does not let us see if it got checked or not. Due to Blachowicz's body position, it looks like he did go for the check. As you can see, he squares his hips as the kick is coming at him. So we'll factor this as a check, contributing damage to both fighters. And then Blachowicz explodes forward with a combination, landing 4 punches on Pereira. He starts it with a looping left hook from distance that gets around the guard. Doesn't show that much impact on Pereira, who's trying to move away from the punches, moving his head with them. Then he gets caught with the forearm as Jan is throwing a right hook. Does not land too clean, and Pereira again is trying to move his head with these punches. A grazing uppercut goes past his face. As you can see, Jan lands more with his forearm as the fist goes past. Also doesn't have that much impact. And then the biggest strike of all of them, a right straight to the temple, lands on Pereira. Jan didn't deliver the most power of the punch because he's moving into his own right hand, taking the power away. And Pereira doesn't show much of a reaction, but this is definitely bigger than just a light attack. A grazing body jab from Pereira yet again, as Jan Blachowicz parries it. And then Pereira gets countered with a grazing leg kick as he was moving his legs away. Pereira answers Jan Blachowicz with a decent jab up top this time. Then Jan sluggishly moves in there, very lethargic with a left hook. He is gassing at this point. There was like no power in this punch. Pereira partially blocks it but still touches him slightly. Pereira's throwing in a right straight as Jan is trying to counter him with a left hook, and both guys graze their punches at the same time. And then Jan, with his strange style, gets the last punch in there as he hits Pereira with a back fist that catches him a little bit by surprise. This is slightly more than a light strike. A grazing body jab from Pereira again, and then Jan, just like always, lunges in from far range with a big left hook, gets partially blocked. He throws it very slow and gets no reaction out of Pereira. They both throw hooks at each other. Jan gets his hook on the inside and actually grazes Pereira, whereas Pereira's almost touches Jan, but it bounces off the shoulder over his head. Then Jan answers with the last punch, throwing it right into Pereira's chest. Now Pereira actually gets a decent body jab, thrusts it right into Blachowicz, and after the punch lands, you see Blachowicz take a deep breath, causing a bit of a reaction out of Blachowicz, making him more than just a light strike. An intercepting jab from Pereira doesn't get much of a reaction out of Blachowicz, who is able to follow up after getting hit. Then Pereira actually lands a good knee on Blachowicz, gets him moving in the clinch, further attacking the body, gassing Jan Blachowicz out. Leg kick from Pereira doesn't get much of a reaction out of Jan. Another intercepting jab as Jan's looking for the left hook. Pereira furthers on the leg damage, but this time it does get checked. Jan tries to come over the top with another left hook around the guard, but it does get partially blocked. Not much impact from the punch. Jan throws a combination forward. His left hook does get blocked, but when he throws the uppercut, it almost lands but slides right past Pereira's chin, comes upward on the side of his head, but he does land the exiting left hand that doesn't get much of a reaction out of Pereira. Jan actually lands a very good jab on Pereira, snapping his head back, and Pereira answers with one of his own but doesn't get the same kind of reaction out of Jan. The reason for that is Jan went forward with the jab into Pereira's head, who didn't see the punch coming, and Pereira just threw his arm forward instead of driving it forward using his body behind it. Pereira counters Jan with a left hook as he's moving in, but doesn't get too much of a reaction out of Jan. Not the biggest punch in the world, but definitely a little bit bigger than a light strike. Inside leg kick from Jan Blachowicz. Then Pereira enters in with a jab, but he does get countered by a left hand from Jan as well. Both strikes light attacks. A second jab from Alex Pereira. This one is actually pretty big, snapping Jan's head back, and he acknowledges the punch as well. That's never a good sign. Jan throws another looping left hook around the guard, but it does get mostly blocked. Doesn't really affect Pereira that much. Another checked leg kick from Pereira. This gets Jan to be a little bit more aggressive. An intercepting left hook from Pereira doesn't show that much of a reaction out of Jan, but when he plants himself, he does look a little bit shaky in the balance. I don't know if it's from the exhaustion or it's from the punch itself. Then a big body jab from Pereira digs far into the body as Jan actually went forward, increasing the damage of the punch, further contributing to the gassing out of Jan Blachowicz. Another intercepting left hook from Pereira doesn't really put much power into the punch, and Jan answers with a grazing right hand as he's exiting out. When Jan shoots a takedown, Pereira was able to land a knee to the body, and then Jan grazes a left hook. Then Pereira answers him with 2 jabs. The first one was light, it touches and glances off, but the second one snaps Jan's head back. Jan throws an inside leg kick that gets checked to the knee, but he does hit it with like the thicker part of his shin. Jan takes Pereira to the ground and lands a right hand on his way down. While on his back, Pereira lands 7 heel kicks on Jan. And then on the ground to end the round, Jan lands 5 strikes on top and Pereira lands 4 from the bottom. So by tallying up all the damage, the light strikes are not really going to matter. 32 for Jan Blachowicz, 36.5 for Alex Pereira. The medium strikes, Pereira has 1 more, and he has the heaviest strike of the whole round, with that 1 leg kick stumbling Jan Blachowicz. Alex Pereira also landed more strikes in total. Really not going to matter too much with the scoring, but the damage is clear as to who is ahead. Alex Pereira caused more damage on Jan Blachowicz, and I think a big contributing factor for that is Jan was just so gassed. He didn't have much on his punches in that round. Now we do factor in also the takedown. Jan Blachowicz did get a takedown, but never got out of the full guard and didn't really do much on top. In fact, Pereira did more off his back than Jan did on top. So Pereira also gets points for grappling as well, ultimately showing who the winner of this fight was. The first round went to Jan Blachowicz, the second round went to Pereira, and for the third round, you have to give it to Alex Pereira. Very close round. So did the judges get this correct? They in fact did. Only one judge got it wrong, even though it was a close one, you can't really blame him too much. In real time, you could see it going either way, but Alex Pereira deserved to win this fight. He won the third round, and that potentially sets him up for a title shot against maybe Yuri Prochazka or whoever is ready to fight for the belt. Jan Blachowicz has beaten some amazing light heavyweights throughout his career, and he just lost to Pereira, which is crazy. A lot of people thought that Blachowicz's wrestling would be too much for Pereira, but it showed that it wasn't enough. And Pereira beat the guy that also beat Adesanya, further playing into the Pereira-Adesanya story. And off of this performance, I think Pereira has a very good shot of becoming the light heavyweight champion, especially if it's against someone like Yuri Prochazka. Blachowicz was one of his toughest matchups. Blachowicz was supposed to be one of the hardest fights for Pereira in that whole light heavyweight division. The hardest is probably Magomed Ankalaev. The best wrestler in the weight class is going to be Pereira's hardest fight, but now he got past Blachowicz. I think Yuri is a much easier fight for him. So I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown, and if you did, make sure to give this a thumbs up, enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.